Well, you're thinking of power and payoffs, Susan, your industry will have studied this. The California power deregulation of the prior decade that fell apart so spectacularly when it turned out and blew up Enron and various other companies was in fact the result of collusion between legislators and power companies. The original attempt to deregulate by Gray Davis was halfway respectable, but by the time Sacramento had finished with it, it was a labyrinth of crony payoffs.
Susan, hold your answer because we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and see what you have to say about that. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Steve McDonald here. Ever notice how some Democrats get all worked up about photo ID? No, not the ID you use to access all those government services like unemployment, Social Security, welfare, and even Obamacare. I'm talking about photo ID to vote. And I don't think it's the photo part. Democrats love photos. President Obama's got a real nice one of himself with that pretty Danish prime minister he took while his wife Michelle was sitting right next to him scowling. So if it's not the photo, it must be the ID. But the only reason to object to the ID would be if you were either not who you said you were, or you didn't live where you said you lived. Which might explain why some Democrats get so upset when you ask for one. I say some Democrats because almost 60% of registered Democrats and 75% of all registered voters thought voter ID was a good idea. So if it's not New Hampshire residents or even Democrats who oppose voter ID, must be the kind that can't get elected unless they can get people to vote in your town who have no business voting there. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Rock Talk.
We have Susan Olsen on the line with us, and we're talking about energy. And if you were listening before, or the lack thereof, if you were listening before the break, you heard a question that Mike asked about Gray Davis and regulation in California, and now we're going to get the answer.
Well, you guys know that I am not a fan of deregulated power for the simple reason that the investments that are required to plan 10, 15, 20, 30 years into the future typically don't make economic sense to try and recover over 7 years of senior debt. When the utilities struck their original bargains with municipalities or states, the quid pro quo was that in exchange for me as a regulated utility, I would provide power or phones or maybe even water to the last person at the end of the last road at the furthermost destination in the state, and I would not charge rates for that any higher than that I charged in the capital city. Now, in exchange for that, and being what's called the provider of last resort, in exchange for that, public utility commissions granted these folks a guaranteed return on investment. Now, that sounds pretty scary, but having been part of that business for a very long time, proving what I think it should be my return on investment to a utilities commission was pretty hard. However, when you need a 30-year horizon to build a base station or a base load power plant, and you need to have the assurance that you'll be able to recover your investment over that 30 years, it was, I hate the phrase, a true public-private partnership. What happened, however, is the economy back in the, 80s, was starting to grow, and there seemed to be a long-term, I say long-term, shortage of capacity. So these folks, well, we're going to deregulate a little bit, and we're going to allow the creation of what's called non-utility generators. And these non-utility generators were granted something called avoided cost. They would go in and build a small power station or a gas-fired generator, and they would be granted the same price or cost per kilowatt hour that it would cost, say, Long Island Electric to build a comparable size station. Good news was they didn't have all of the baggage of regulatory compliance. Seemed like not a bad deal. And what, believe it or not, the feds expected the outcome to be was about 5,000 megawatts of additional capacity on a nationwide basis. It turned into 50,000 megawatts of power and kept growing. And this non-utility generator and this guaranteed price per kilowatt hour ended up in these guys being able to run 100% of the time and get 100% of the price, forcing regular generators to back down their own capacity to allow these guys to fill in the blanks. And many utilities actually went into bankruptcy because of this. New York was the poster child for that. Long Island Electric was the first to go.
You want to know why the American...
It's all right, wrong button.
Niagara Mohawk. I mean, lots and lots of utilities went out of business. But, gosh, that just didn't end because people saw how easy it was to make money off of short-term energy investments. So a lot of folks went overseas, Enron being one of them. But in New Hampshire, the deregulation has resulted in making New Hampshire one of the most expensive places in the country for electrical power, and has increasingly diminished our own ability to generate electricity here in the state. There was only one utility left that was a generator. Let's exclude Seabrook, but Public Service was the only plant that had generating capacity here. And now those plants are going to be shut down, and it's all going to be commodity-based in the name of free markets. Well, that doesn't always work. So I'm a heretic in that.
I was going to say, hang on a minute. We have a capitalist saying free markets don't work, but I know you got a good explanation for it.
Well, there are just some things that don't lend themselves to commodity pricing, and one of them is long-term investment. It's difficult to plan long-term if your window for recovery of your investment doesn't match your plan. If I'm going to build $1 million house and I get a 30-year loan to do that, my payments are going to be a little less than they would be if I had a 5-year loan or a 15-year loan. And if somebody else is picking up the tab for my mortgage, like ratepayers do, are they going to want a 30-year mortgage payment level, or are they going to want a 5-year mortgage level payment? Utilities are not allowed to recover monies in excess of their long-term investment and their operating costs. Any excess revenue for a regulated utility goes directly to the rate base, goes back to the ratepayers. That was the deal. There was no other deal. But now that deal no longer exists. I feel quite sorry for public service. If I was the CEO, I'd take the keys and I'd walk up to Maggie and I'd walk up to Nada Kane and I'd walk up to the Dems and I'd say, here you go, you run it, you're so smart.
Oh, great. That's all we need.
Hey,
Yeah.
You know what? The problem is you think you just can keep taking it and that you're more concerned with keeping the lights on than trying to do the right thing. There comes a breaking point, and I think Atlas Shrugged kind of said it all.
All right, Susan, we got to go. Hard break. Thanks for calling in and spending some time with us.
That was really
Well, it was a wandering thing, but you boys have fun, and see you next year.
All righty. Have a good holiday.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Susan Olsen obviously knows a hell of a lot more than you or I about power. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to open the phone lines and have some fun, see what happens. Stay tuned.
You want to know why the American people are frustrated. You want to know why they're ticked off. You want to know why they cannot understand. It's not that we keep losing elections. That would be frustrating. But you could understand. We got to do a better job. We got to motivate people. We got to convince people. We got to get a message that resonates. We keep winning. And the people we elect don't do what they said they would do.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is Raw Talk.